What's going on, Ma? Welcome you guys to another watch party here on the watch list. It's a Thursday as we file our way down the week. It's the back end. We just had hump day yesterday. I think Friday is in sight. Matter of fact, this morning I woke my kid up for school, and the first thing he said to me was, "Well, yo, what day of the week is it?" I said, "Man, it's Thursday." He's like, "Man." I said, "What? What's wrong with Thursday?" He said, "It's not Friday." We're getting there, though. We're getting there. I'm glad you guys are here. All the nerds have been showing up since about 10 to 15 minutes before we got started, as usual. I think you guys are probably beginning to get used to this. I do want to point out, I can't wait because it's in another 4 or 5 days or so. We're approaching our 2 month daily watch party show that we've been doing here. That, one day I just said, I think I'm just going to talk for an hour. And we're approaching 2 months doing this. Who knew that I'd have this kind of energy to keep doing this type of stuff, putting everything together, and now becoming a little bit addicted to making sure that this goes off on time, which, I mean, let's keep it real. I think I deserve a little bit of credit. I was starting 5 minutes late quite regularly at first, and now we got things happening. And instead of starting 5 minutes late, I get on right on time and I talk for 5 minutes and get us started late anyway. Why not? Well, who cares, right? Anyways, I'm glad you guys have all filed in. What's going on, Christina, Elisa Brown, of course, Swede Dragon, Dexter Wong, all the normals. Abby Normal's here as well. Of course, Ma, I see you there. Glad you guys are here. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm not sure if you guys saw this or how many of you guys also follow me over on Instagram. You can also check me out there. Send me some messages. Let me know that you guys are hearing me, seeing me, and what it is that you're enjoying. Maybe some stories that I'm missing. Maybe some angles that I got wrong. Yo, I'm not perfect. I'm still drinking my Nas energy drink, as a matter of fact, which makes me very not perfect at all. Sorry, that was loud. It's bubbly. Anyways, let's get started, you guys. What happened yesterday is what I want to show you guys. And the reason I brought up my Instagram account is because I posted about this guy. It's Weasley, little mouse face piece of trash that likes to tell Americans what he's gonna do to us and how much he hates us. But they wonder why people say they can't stand this administration and their fascist tendencies. It's one Stephen Miller. Maybe you guys saw this, maybe you didn't. Either way, you're going to see it again.
They have no families they're raising in this city. They have no one that they're sending to school in this city. They have no jobs in this city. They have no connections to this community at all. But they're the ones who've been advocating for the 1%, the criminals, the killers, the rapists, the drug dealers. And I'm glad they're here today. Because me, Pete, and the vice president are all going to leave here, and inspired by them, we're going to add thousands more resources to this city to get the criminals and the gang members out of here. We're going to dismantle those networks, and we're going to prove that a city can serve for the law-abiding citizens who live there. We are not going to let the communists destroy a great American city, let alone the nation's capital. And let's just also address another thing. All these demonstrators that you've seen out here in recent days, all of these elderly white hippies, they're not part of the city and never have been. And by the way, most of the citizens who live in Washington, D.C. are black. This is not a city that has had any safety for its black citizens for generations. And President Trump is the one who is fixing that with the support of the Metropolitan Police Department, the support of the National Guard, and our federal law enforcement officers. So we're going to ignore these stupid white hippies that all need to go home and take a nap because they're all over 90 years old, and we're going to get back to the business of protecting the American people and the citizens of Washington, D.C.
Stephen Miller there, one of the main top advisors for Donald Trump, who moves like he's itching, and all the roaches and bugs and snakes that are in his heart and around his neck keep trying to seep out of the collar of his shirt. That garbage decided to take his ass to Washington, D.C. and scream at people and call people names, and had also the audacity to talk as if he has any kind of concern for black citizens of D.C. That's as this administration rolls through the streets and completely directly targets them. The same administration that called the neighborhoods that many of those folks live in slums because of who they are. This guy thinks somehow he's going to convince people that after he's had this role in this administration, this racist, fascist administration, he can walk in there with Pete Hegseth and JD Vance and tell people who they are because these 90-year-old white hippies should go take a nap. I feel like going after old white folks in this country is a bad decision, but honestly, they don't care. They're going after everybody. Maybe his ass was on fire yesterday because of the way they were received in Washington, D.C. And that's why he brought up those protesters, because he definitely didn't like the way that JD and Pete were seen as they walked through, I believe it was Union Station. Wherever they went in the city, they were treated like this.
I heard you, buddy. This is the guy who thinks people don't deserve law and order in their own community.
Mr. Vice President, how did it go?
Guys, thank you. Fascist scum! Pete Hegseth, you're a white beater! JD Vance, you look like a constipated rodent! Get out of our city! How much do you like diddling kids? How much do you like diddling kids? Where are the Epstein files, JD?
Get out of our city!
Get out of our city! Free DC!
Get out of DC! Get out of the world! Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you!
Fascist scum! Fuck you, Pete! Fucking Nazi! Oh, look! It's Couch Fucker! You gonna fuck a couch buddy?
Right here. Do not protest.
Go fuck the couch, JD Vance! Go fuck the couch!
That's how JD Vance and Pete Hegseth were greeted in the nation's capital, where apparently they believe that they need to install their law and order. And when a guy specifically in his face told him how much a piece of trash he is, this is his comeback. This guy thinks that he doesn't deserve law and order in his community. Oh, such a burn, JD. Couch fucker. Oh, I'm sorry. A constipated rodent. I appreciated that one. That one was funny. I hadn't heard that one before. But they came into the city to show this show of force, to back up what they've been doing for the past week or so, when they've sent National Guard troops and federalized the police force and started attacking the community, but then passing it off as people loving everything that they're doing because they're fascists and they honestly don't care what people are saying. So the more that people see the way that they were reacted to as they walk through the city, as the way also these military guys have been responded to as they walk through the city with guns out and masks up and military style helmets on and military vehicles trolling through the streets, the way that they always said those fascist Democrats would do. As they do that, he walked inside this bunker looking situation where Stephen Miller was ranting and raving about people before. He decided to go ahead and greet some of these law enforcement people and these military folks. And it was just as awkward as you could imagine, because JD Vance is awkward.
Hey guys, Eddie's. Good to see you all. Come here. So we decided to bring the Secretary of Defense and Stephen Miller to bring you guys back over. We appreciate everything that you're doing. So, you guys bust your ass all day. We give you a hamburger. Not a fair trade, but we're grateful for everything you guys do. So, how long have you guys been working here at this area? Has it been the whole 9 days?
About 7.
It's been about 7. Okay. General, tell me what's going on here. What are you guys seeing? Okay.
Yep. Well, a lot's changed in the past 7 days. So you guys are doing a hell of a job. We're proud of you. We're grateful to you. And I just wanted to come by and say thanks. And we got so let's say hello for a bit. We're not going to talk to the elders, but just want to shake some hands and say hey to guys. Appreciate it, man. Thank you. All right. Good to see you, man. Thank you.
This guy's really, really awkward. I mean, you know, I know there was the whole campaign process and their strategy from Kamala and them talking about how weird this guy was. But I mean, it's on it. He exhibits it every day. Hey guys, hey, I just want to at ease, fellas, at ease, please. How long you guys been here? So what's been going on? Hey, have you guys assaulted any children today? You know, have you beat up any black people? How about some other minorities? Hey, what'd you guys do with those homeless people? How was that? Yo, did those tents, are they really there? How are you guys doing? I just want to come around and shake some hands. Man, get out of here. This guy's supposed to act like he's connecting with people. They had him on the plane or wherever the hell he came in from and said, JD, just go in there and start chopping it up with your fellow armed service guys and act like you really know how they are. At ease, fellas, at ease. Man, I'm not sure if this guy was actually ever in the military because this guy's square as hell. So, but he still walks in and tries to have this photo op, which I just want to shake a couple of y'all's hands, fellas. How about you go and actually try and connect with folks? Or maybe they don't want to be there doing that stuff. Which, by the way, if they don't, they probably shouldn't follow these illegal orders to be harassing American citizens in the streets like they've been told to do now. But he just wants to go in and talk to some people because outside of that, right as he's trying to shake some hands and have his photo op, there's still people screaming and booing and calling him an asshole. God, I'm so tired of these people. But still, he had a chance to go and talk to some folks. I guess they were asked questions by reporters, and he wanted to give some reasons as to why he was there. So he made this up.
Some violent, crazy people who are screaming at kids with a few crazy liberals who are screaming at the vice president. But I think that's a very worthwhile trade to make because we want our people to be able to enjoy our beautiful cities. And the last thing I'll say is to the American people, D.C. is already safer than it was 9 days ago, but we're going to make it safer still to come. This is your city. You should feel free to come and visit here, have a meal, see all these incredible monuments, and actually enjoy yourself. And that's what we're trying to make happen. And I think that if we set a standard in Washington, D.C., that political willpower can bring some common sense, law and order back to these communities, then maybe some other communities and other cities will follow suit. So it's kind of crazy. You hear these guys outside. They appear to hate the idea that Americans can enjoy their communities, and they do the fact that D.C. a week ago had a higher murder rate than Trinidad and Tobago, which the United States State Department has said you shouldn't visit because it's unsafe. We ought to be able to enjoy great American cities. That's what we're trying to do in the Trump administration.
If you're doing that and people are feeling the effects, why do you have to come forward and tell what you're trying to do? It's because it's not happening. By the way, he's talking about Trinidad and Tobago having a lower murder rate, and then other countries say not, or our country says not to visit there. Maybe he should also realize that other countries are warning people from coming to visit this fascist hellhole that they've created in just 6 months and being in office. See, he won't point out that part. How they threaten people who come and visit and how they're not doing that anymore. Oh, he wants people to go out and eat at restaurants. But I'm sorry, 31% of folks, the reservation rates for those restaurants to come out, eat, and have fun has dropped by 31% because everything they're doing is working great. He had more to say about what it is that he's doing there and more lies about what it is that's going on.
Why are troops stationed here at Union Station on the National Mall instead of areas in D.C. where crime is statistically highest?
Well, if you've ever been to Union Station in the last few years with your family, you know that crime is actually extremely high right here in Union Station. You have vagrants, you have drug addicts, you have the chronically homeless, you have the mentally ill who harass, who threaten violence, who attack families, and they've done it for far too long. This should be a monument to American greatness. This should be a place where you can come and share a meal or go shopping with your family. It should not be a place
or parents of small children are afraid to bring them because, to Stephen's point, we've empowered criminals over the people who actually need public safety in the city. So I think Union Station is a great example of what's possible when you actually have the political willpower to bring law and order and common decency back to the public spaces of the United States of America. So many.
By the way, look at little Steven's ass over there. Look at little guy. So JD Vance, the problem is the reasons why they're stationed, that military personnel are stationed with huge armored vehicles, are stationed at Union stations because there's vagrants, homeless people, and the mentally ill that apparently are destroying people throughout the city. Why does it keep changing who all the criminals are? Because just yesterday, as they were talking about the slums and the black folks and the migrants that have come in, those folks are the ones that are destroying everybody. But now it's the unhoused and it's the mentally ill. It sounds so Nazi-like. It's like they're Nazis or something. But what they're there to do, why there's military in the middle of Washington, D.C., and why they federalized the police force is because of vagrants. All those dangerous vagrants. Where did the vagrants come from? Are they American citizens? Did the system screw them over and get them on the streets? Are they veterans, JD Vance? Do they have mental health issues because they're PTSD that they've experienced right after they got back from serving this country, and then the system chewed them up, spit them out, cut their health care, and said, F you. I wonder why they're on the streets, JD. And your ass is standing there as if you're better than anybody else. Man, this guy's a disgrace to the entire country. As a matter of fact, those vagrants that are destroying people's lives, this is actually what happened on the streets of Washington, D.C. as these military vehicles are rolling down up and down the streets. Maybe you guys saw this.
Are you fucking kidding me right now? Okay. I think we should probably, but some fuck shit. You come to our city, this is what you do? Seriously?
Not sure how clearly you guys could see it, but there was a huge military vehicle in the middle of the streets there in Washington, D.C. that had T-boned a driver, a resident of the city that they're keeping safe as they drive through their normal vehicles with this kind of vehicle. Let me show you guys what kind of vehicle that was. The one that looked like a Bigfoot, except it was armored. An armored National Guard vehicle collided with a civilian car on Capitol Hill on Wednesday morning as troops continue to take up positions around the city during Trump's crackdown on crime and immigration violations. Losers. One person was trapped inside the car and had to be extracted by emergency responders. That's according to DC Fire Department spokesman Vito Maglio. That person was taken to a hospital with minor injuries, is what they then pointed out. So that vehicle was an armored, mine-resistant vehicle that's like 10, 15 feet off the ground. And they drove right through somebody because they don't know what the hell they're doing. Or maybe because that damn thing probably takes up 2 to 3 lanes worth of regular, normal streets because it's not a war zone that this administration has turned this city into. Because apparently Washington, D.C. looks so inviting now. People want to show up and see people with long guns in their faces and say, what are you doing? Where are you going? When are you going to go home? As a matter of fact, go home now or get in the back of this vehicle. I got more numbers on what is that they're actually doing in the city as they're destroying people's lives. And someone had to be extracted from their car with the jaws of life because military is rolling through the streets where they're not supposed to be. But we just let this shit just fly by and roll off our backs as if nothing is happening. There was some residents in DC who ran these guys back to their cars and out of their neighborhood the other day, which I'm very proud of and happy that it's happening. But people aren't going to keep taking this. That's why they already got the military there. They're starting the problem, and they're going to say, look at all of these responses. Because humans do that. There was an aspect of this that I wasn't really sure if I was even going to go towards this guy, but I keep seeing him pop up in the things that he's saying. I guess he's another like Joe Rogan. Have you guys heard of Tim Dillon? Because I see the guy and I see his face and his podcast pop up every once in a while. And I literally had to Google search, why is Tim Dillon all over the place? And no disrespect to him because I don't know who he is, but no disrespect to whatever he is that he's done or said. But I feel like he's one of these MAGA-leaning podcasters that help the bros try and think that this guy was going to do something for the country. What he's discovering is that everything that he probably said or endorsed or who he interviewed and said he's a cool guy because he's making America great again, he's discovering all that was bullshit.
We don't need National Guard, or do we? I don't know that we do. All of the stuff that's happening right now, the militarized police, the, Palantir building the list. I don't love all of this. It seems like the precursor to the next thing. And the next thing might be much worse than this one. We don't need National Guard.
Maybe they're starting to realize that we don't need National Guardsmen in the streets. Maybe all the things that they were telling you that they're doing and that is happening isn't real. Maybe they're liars. Maybe they're looking for an opportunity to fool enough gullible people so they can unleash the military into the streets and say that crime is all over the place. So that now, when it's too late, you can go, I'm not sure if this was supposed to happen this way. All he said was that he was going to militarize the police, send his Proud Boys to be his law enforcement agencies, have brown shirts everywhere, have mass deportations, destroy the economy, and fuck up everybody's life. I didn't think he was actually going to do all that stuff. I thought he was just joking, running for president. This guy wasn't done talking.
They've already got the cops on the street that are not cops or that are the military. They've already got the National Guard on the street. They already have all your information in DC. And now they just get to decide what is and isn't over the line. That should scare everybody. You're fucking nuts, dude. If this doesn't scare you, you're nuts. All of these things that Alex Jones, and I've had Alex on, I like Alex, but all these things that Alex Jones was like worried about when I listened to him in the late 90s, early 2000s are coming to fruition. And I don't know where he is on all of that stuff, but like, I know he's a big fan of Trump, but like, this is everything Alex Jones always talked about. Military in the street, the FEMA camp, the tech company that monitors everything, the surveillance. This is all of that. I mean, not to sound like a fucking nut. This is everything a crackhead. And I don't even mean a crackhead like crack, but a guy smoking weed in a room with a fucking black light and a fucking, insane clown posse tattoo on his arm. I'm thinking of a very specific guy I was friends with. But this is everything that guy would have talked about. He'd be like, bro, there's going to be military in the street. They're going to put you in jail for your fucking thoughts, man. If you just say them, bro, you're going to be in fucking jail. There's going to be a fucking company that monitors everything you do, bro. Like, this is literally the wet dream of every conspiracy theorist that has ever lived, and it's happening now.
You're real close, Tim. It's the wet dream of fascists that are doing it right now. So that conspiracy theorist, crackhead and weedhead, I'm not sure how those are the same thing, but that weedhead friend of yours that you were smoking weed with in that dark room with the lava lamp and the black lights, that guy was talking about the people that, again, I guess during the campaign, this guy supported this movement and is surprised to see that this movement is doing what they said they would do. But oddly, even as he's coming to these realizations, he still is calling the people who said this would happen under the right kind of regime of fascist is happening. But when they call it out, they're still weird crackheads. Or are the people in the White House the weird crackheads? Maybe his son, who's caught running some blow in his face, on his nose, and dipping it into his cheek. Maybe they're the real crackheads. They're just rich enough to stay in a house while they do it and then run homeless people off the streets, veterans who are trying to deal with mental health issues that this country put on them after they were put in situations that no human brain can really comprehend. Maybe it's that. Or maybe they're still lying to you. I got some more information about what is going on with all these arrests that are going on in Washington, D.C. This is fascinating. It's from the Washington Post. Trump's crusade against crime in the nation's capital has resulted in more than 450 arrests since August 7th, is what the White House announced on Tuesday. Those arrests, fueled by an increase in federal agents on city streets, run the gamut of charges. That's from murder and assault to driving under the influence. They're really cleaning up the city because they're getting all those folks that are driving under the influence off of the streets, kind of like what normally happens when people are driving under the influence and they get pulled over and then they're taken off the streets. It's like it's a brand new charge or something. More. The Washington Post repeatedly reached out to the White House for the arrest records and undergirding their stats, and has not received answers to questions about the specific details of each arrest. DC police deferred a similar request, saying the information needed to come from the White House. And when asked specifically about the number of arrests made by local officers, not federal agents, DC police directed the questions to the mayor's office, which was not responsible for arrest data, and they didn't respond either. It's like we're at a dead end about the information of these 450 arrests. There's more, though. As a result, there's a black hole instead of the usually readily accessible basic information surrounding an arrest. So, for example, when DC police make an arrest, there will be a, quote, public incident report, a public document that includes, among other things, the offense and its location and date and a short description of what happened. DC police continue to provide the reports for crimes in which local officers make an arrest, but refuse to answer questions about many of the arrests made by the multi-agency federal task force teams, despite DC police officers being embedded with many of them. So when the federalization of the police force comes in, there's no more accountability. There's no more police records. There's no more incident reports. There's no more details of what happened. There's probably no details of the names of the people that are sweeping up off the streets, kind of like what they're doing with migrants in California and kind of like what they're doing in other cities. And it's weird how this is now happening. It's also sweeping up American citizens that they just don't like. Or maybe their skin is too brown, or maybe they're standing in the wrong place at the wrong time, or maybe they tossed a middle finger at some military guy. Who knows and who cares? They don't, because there's a black hole. By the way, speaking of those 450 arrests that they're bragging about, this is probably the best part and the last one. Between August 7th, it's weird, it's like the same point of the month from last year. Between August 7th and 19th of last year, DC police alone made 667 arrests. It's unclear whether the numbers the White House is releasing each day include any DC police arrests or are solely limited to arrests made by federal officers. But in case we want to know, when asked to clarify whether these arrests being announced by the White House included any DC police arrests, a DC police spokesman said they don't know. Accountability, law and order, transparency, none of those things are happening. These fascist white supremacists in the White House have no law. They have no order. That's why J.D. Vance walked around getting called a bunch of pieces of shits and assholes, said, this guy doesn't like law and order. According to your arrest warrants that you have no record of, and neither does the DC police that you federalized and taken control over, nobody knows. And even if their numbers that you're coming up with are correct, they're less than what they received last year from DC police doing their normal accountability of like picking up murderers, picking up people under DUIs and vagrants, as he's worried about. But there weren't any armored, mine-resistant vehicles T-boning residents as they drive to work in the morning. That's what fascism looks like. It's irresponsible, it's stupid, and it's all based in savage behavior, as they call other people those names. It's almost like we told you this was going to happen, as you're sitting in a dark, smoke-filled room with a lava lamp. but it's those hippies that are the problem. Somebody needs to slap the shit out of Stephen Miller. Okay, let's move on, because this is another aspect of this fascist movement. It's not only invaded our federal government where Donald Trump sits, as the king sits there and tells all of his minions in the Republican Party to do his bidding. In Texas, they finally got their bidding done. This is what went down yesterday evening.
Republicans just passed their severely gerrymandered congressional map, the request of Donald Trump. The vote was 88 to 52. All 88 yes votes came from Republicans, all 52 no votes from Democrats. The map creates 5 new GOP-leaning districts before next year's crucial midterm elections. Let's be clear, this is a ploy to retain power, nothing more, as Americans sour on Trump's MAGA agenda.
The underlying goal of this plan is straightforward: improve Republican political performance. Each of these newly drawn districts now trend Republican in political performance. While there's no guarantee of an electorate success, Republicans will now have an opportunity to potentially win these districts.
So that's State Representative Todd Hunter down in Texas, who was a part of these Republicans that just passed this extraordinarily gerrymandered map that they've been fighting with Democrats who left the state for a week or two, now finally got done. And he openly admitted their entire objective is to improve Republican political performance. So they have to rig the system in order to improve their performance. I feel like their performance is also why so many of their wives are very upset with them. But still, they want now the opportunity to win some seats. They can only win some seats if they rig the maps. It's like they're hiding their objectives here. So as State Rep Todd Hunter is talking all this about how proud he is of rigging the system, as they see everyone else as a cheat and a steal and breaking the law, because all that surface level nonsense that they like to say. While he's doing that, there's real life situations that they're ignoring, that they have ignored, and that they apparently continue to want to ignore. And the reasons why they don't want to compete for these seats is because the residents that they're ignoring are going through things like this.
We are the parents of Seal Stewart, the only camper from Camp Mystic still missing. For Seal, camp meant adventure, memories, friendships, and lessons to carry for a lifetime. For me, it meant watching my child grow and learn, but always under the assurance that she would be safe. But that assurance was betrayed. Obvious common sense safety measures were absent. Protocols that should have been in place were ignored. As a result, my daughter was stolen from us. Lila was special. She was beautiful. She was pure. She was so kind. The most gentle little girl who fiercely loved her little sisters and all of her friends. A friend who preferred to shine her light on the people around her. A light she lit inside of me when she made me a mom.
Those are the parents of some of the victims of that flooding that took the lives of 27 people at Camp Mystic, where all those little girls were and where their counselors were, and then the runners of those camps were all victims. And they got a chance to talk about the things that they want to change. In the state of Texas, that same state where these Republicans just gerrymandered maps because they know that they don't give a damn about these folks that they're supposed to represent, as they stripped before this. Stripped any kind of warning systems, funding that goes to making sure flooding victims have a chance, all the stuff that they don't care about because they're funneling money to the pockets of the billionaires that pay them and following the orders of Donald Trump. Real lives are lost. Children's lives are lost. So, I mean, I remember before when this administration was stepping in and I was saying, how about we stop acting like anything is normal about them? People's lives will be lost. They said, it doesn't matter. It's not going to happen. We just have to wait for the midterms. Tell these people who've lost their children how much longer they should wait as they're heartbroken. There's more of it.
Sadly, Harper and all the campers should have woken up on July 4th and celebrated the holiday with their new friends. Instead, Hadley was pulled out of a window of her twins' 2 cabin after it had filled with water. Less than 10 feet away were stairs to an upstairs apartment. That higher ground could have saved her life and the 5 girls in her cabin that also passed away. Hadley wasn't the strongest swimmer, not that it mattered in those waters, but she was strong, so strong. I thought if she could hold on to something, she would be okay. Instead, she and 2 other little girls were knocked out of a tree and died. In total, 5 of the 12 girls from her cabin also died. Our precious, hilarious, kind, caring, silly, loving little girl who always wanted to help others died because there was no plan, because there was no backup system or sirens. Before Hadley left for camp, she was worried about being away from me for a month. You see, she may have her dad's personality, but she was my mini-me and my best friend. I promised her she would be safe and okay. I told her camp was the safest place she could be, and she would make new friends and learn new things. I lied to her. She not only wasn't safe, she died. We sat around for 16 hours praying, hoping, pacing, getting prank phone calls and texts from people saying they had her, for her only to be found down the road, alone. The overwhelming lack of prevention, detection, training, and response in this situation is mind-boggling, and is what we are asking SB1 to address. This is not the first flood, and it certainly won't be the last.
There's real lives connected to this. There's real lives of people who are supposed to get something for their tax dollars that they pay, and not to go to the people who pay our representatives to give them more of it and strip away National Weather Service warnings, alarm system warnings, and general approaches to the way businesses have destroyed our environment, which have caused these storms to get even more intense, and a lack of infrastructure for the way that things break down and the floodwaters spew into all kinds of areas. They don't care. You know why? Because State Representative Todd Hunter needs some more Republican opportunities for political performance. When people's children are dying, 8, 10, 12-year-olds, off to camp for the first time. If you have children, I mean, when you hear someone talk about how their child was afraid to go to camp, and you said, I promise you're going to be safe and you'll come back, and they don't, it makes you wonder, what was the last thing she was thinking? They've already set up our society to accept the deaths of children. I mean, we've watched them get shot up in schools. We've seen them dismantled by these really high-powered AR-15 rifles and AK-47s that people shoot at each other, and they'll say that's okay because it's our Second Amendment right. They already set us up to not care about children dying. So as they take all this funding from everything and call it savings and fraud, waste, and abuse, there's consequences for that, and they're not paying for it. Here's Republican State Senator Lois Colkhurst. Now, by the way, this happened in the House when they're trying to do all these changes for these redistricting. Republican State Senator Lois Colkhurst. She was in this hearing, and this was her response.
Really good reminder for all of us just in life. And I say that because I want you to know that you're being heard. And you're impacting lives. This tragedy is going to impact future lives. My chief of staff said to me the other night, I can't unhear their stories. I can't unhear their stories. And that's a good thing.
I don't know where she stands on the redistricting thing. She's a state senator. She represents the Republican Party, who is all about this redistricting, this gerrymandering, because they don't care enough to represent their constituents. But she needs a really good reminder. It's a good reminder of your dead children that you found the bodies of by themselves, swept up in floodwaters. It's a really good reminder of who it is that they've been ignoring and not representing. Despite the fact that when they're alive and they're screaming at you, we want representation, they give you a middle finger and say, this guy doesn't like law and order. But when your children are dead, now they're crying, and they needed that reminder. If you needed a reminder of who it is that you're representing in the greatest country in the history of the world, and all this money and the richest, everyone bringing in billions and trillions of dollars from all these tariffs and tax cuts that are going to rich people, if all that's happening, why isn't that money going to actually saving lives, preventing deaths? We heard Janine Pirro talk about what they're doing in DC. Someone asked her, what are you going to do to prevent some of the crime? She goes, I don't look to prevent crime. I look for crime to happen so I can capitalize off it politically. I don't care. They don't care. And even though they're crying right now, they're not going to care next week. When someone says, yo, by the way, how about some money for the situations we need to prevent these things from happening? They're going to go, well, my oligarchs told me no. You guys voted me in, but they told me no because they need $10 more. That lady's chief of staff said that he can't unhear their stories, but he's definitely trying to. It's like, I can't get it out of my head. It haunts me. I wish I didn't have to listen to you guys anymore. So I guarantee you, fewer and fewer of them will be out in the streets. Fewer and fewer of them will have town halls. Fewer and fewer of them will actually talk to people and go knocking on doors like they say real politicians do. Because one Mike Johnson, who's the Speaker of the House, told them to stop doing those things because you don't want to hear the stories of the people whose lives you're destroying. People don't heal from stuff like this. So, as they were doing this, I'm going to show you guys how hell-bent they were on making sure that more Texas families experience the kind of pain and suffering that those families experience. This is what they did to some of the people who were fighting for Texans' lives and representation.
And all of our Democratic elected officials.
Sorry, I have to leave. They said it's a felony for me to do this. Apparently, I can't be on the floor or in the bathroom. Well, you told me I was only allowed to be here in the bathroom. No, hang on. Bye, everybody. I've got to go.
Hey, that is outrageous. And first of all, let me tell you something. Representative Collier in the bathroom has more dignity than Donald Trump in the Oval Office.
There you go.
That is outrageous. What they're trying to do right there is silence an American leader, silence a Black woman. And that is outrageous. And I hope everybody took note of that. The fact that she can't even let her voice be heard is freaking outrageous.
It is.
And this is what we're fighting for here. This is ultimately what this is about. What we just witnessed, them trying to shut her down and say it's illegal for her to be in the bathroom and on this call. This is the lengths that they're going to in Texas to try to bring about a system so unjust and so unjustifiable that they are going to try to silence those leaders from being heard and speaking out.
In case you guys didn't hear about that part, State Representative Nicole Collier there was the one who slept in the Texas House chambers because they had her on lockdown after those Democrats came back into the state. They assigned them with security, not personal bodyguard security, but police presence to keep them, to hold them, unless they signed permission slips. And then she went into the restroom. They called that a felony to speak with Democratic leadership. Because they don't care that little children died a month or two ago in those floods, because they need their political power, as that asshole at the beginning said. This is the police state. This is the fascism that they kept telling you was on its way. As they kept telling you it was their political opponents that were going to carry it out. They had been brewing it and planning it for decades. This is what they are. This is what they've always been, and they're happy to now do it loudly and proudly. Speaking of loudly and proudly being a complete a-hole, here's the governor of the state talking about how mad he is that another state in California is going to do the same thing to show them how devastating this is.
And so what the Democrats have done is disgraceful and potentially illegal. I'll tell you this much. If California dares to try to squeeze out more Republicans, there are going to be lawsuits that will overturn that. What I can tell you in the state of Texas, the 5 Republican seats that we are adding, they are going to withstand legal challenges, and those will be Republican members added to the United States Congress.
That's the entire objective. Your state is different. Your state has some kind of level of responsibility. We steamroll everything in our state. We disregard the laws and the rules and the Constitution. We do whatever the hell we want because we can't represent the people. We are not Americans. We're traitors to this country. We use the people. We don't represent them. And it's disgraceful for another state to do exactly what we're doing. In case you guys don't know, there was bills put forward that was supported by every Democrat in Congress to stop gerrymandering in states, because it happens in Democratic states and it happens in Republican states. And in case you don't know, it happens 10 times more in Republican states than it does in Democratic states, already before this rabid approach to doing it everywhere is now spreading, because they can't compete. They can't compete. They're afraid of the future. That's why they keep trying to take us to the past, when they had control and fascism under certain people that they're trying to re-implement here. So once it starts getting put back in their faces, it becomes disgraceful. The hypocrisy absolutely has no limits. Last point on this. Gavin Newsom out in California, who's been having this fight with them and showing them who they really are by copying their same tactics, instead of going, well, wait, we want the American people to see exactly how it is that they're acting and hope that one day they understand that they should vote for us. That is, while the people who are telling them these lies are calling those mealy-mouthed people fascists, socialists, communists, that they keep throwing all their ists around. Gavin Newsom responded, and it's about time.
Well, Governor, I want to jump in and ask you about some news that we heard about today, which is California Republicans filed an emergency petition with the California Supreme Court to block this redistricting push, saying that Democrats are violating the state constitution's 30-day review rule by rushing the bill through. What's your response to that? Are you at all concerned that this redistricting effort will fail in the courts?
Well, I find it rather rich that they've woken up to gerrymandering. They've woken up to redistricting. They've said not a word about what's going on in other states. What didn't happen as it relates to their congressional representatives, Republicans, that did not support the John Lewis Voting Rights Act that incorporated a national independent redistricting frame. Democrats overwhelmingly supported that. Only one party has come out in support of national independent redistricting. And now they realize what's at stake, because they weren't counting on this. They were counting us to cave. They were counting us to, talk about the way the world should be, hold hands and have a candlelight vigil. And then once again, watch us get rolled. And this time we didn't do it. And we're fighting back. And as a consequence, they recognize what's at stake, because they know that the voters likely will have not only each other's back, but this country and our backs as it relates to the democracy and the core tenets of our founding fathers, these enduring values that we've enjoyed and frankly taken for granted for 249 years. They recognize that they will likely lose this November. When we put a constitutional amendment in front of the voters, that's why I think the Supreme Court in the state will reject their assertions and give the people the right to make the determination for themselves. That's the ultimate expression of democracy, direct democracy in this case.
I know there's issues with Gavin Newsom. I know how he always served those bigger corporate interests and stuff. Right now, when it comes to this fight for the way these guys are now, this whole idea of gerrymandering to the degree that they're doing now here in Texas and eliminating Black and brown areas from any kind of representation, specifically, that's the plan. it's spreading to other states because they're like, yo, we can get in the good favors of the king too, and we'll have more power to destroy people's lives and create more dead kids. I'm glad he's doing something. I'm glad he's doing it loudly, and I'm glad he's angry about it, even if it's all for political purposes. Because if this guy runs for president, like everyone's talking about, it's some kind of deflection. It's reasons why he's doing this right now. Fine. How about right now we get to the point where we can still have someone run for president? That's what they're working on. I got a few minutes left. I want to switch gears to this last one. That whole story pissed me off so much. I'm sorry I took so long on it, but I feel like I really had to drive the point home of how direct lack of representation and only care for political power and fascism actually literally directly affects people's lives, where they're done, where it's over, and their families are now devastated. When are we going to finally figure that part out? There's no hanging out with them. There's no, oh my God, we called them the wrong name. There's none of that stuff. They don't care about name calling. They're killing you, and they're working on it every day. They don't care about you. Why do we care about them? Last piece here. Speaking of children, the cover-up of the Jeffrey Epstein situation continues. In the middle of this administration, that said they're going to do everything else about it. So in order to try and help, remedy some of the wrong situations of who it is that's in the positions at the FBI, this administration has added someone else to be a part of the FBI to help the cover-up.
The Trump administration has announced a new co-deputy director to help lead the FBI. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey will serve alongside the current deputy director, Dan Bongino. Back in 2024, Bailey asked the Supreme Court to step in blocking sentencing during New York's criminal case against Trump.
Bongino, while he was a former Secret Service officer turned media personality, has never ran an organization this large and was never an FBI officer or agent. Neither was Mr. Bailey. Bailey is an Army veteran who was a prosecutor in Missouri, obviously then got elected to the state's highest prosecutor office. But you have to remember that he does not have this experience either.
Plan is to replace one idiot with another. I'm sorry, it's the co-deputy director of the FBI. His name is Andrew Bailey, and there's a little more information about how much of a loyalist this guy is. They already had one mention there about how much he kowtows to Donald Trump, but here's more.
Well, what's interesting is Andrew Bailey was actually on Donald Trump's mind during the transition team. He was originally floated as a possible contender for the attorney general spot. And so he has been a close Trump ally over the past few years. In Missouri, he sued Starbucks over its DEI policies. He's done a lot in Missouri that sort of aligns with the Trump administration policies. And so he is a more obvious choice as FBI to work for the FBI, just given his background when you compare with Bongino.
Somehow he's more of an obvious choice. He's more of a loyalist. By the way, in case you guys didn't know, I'm sure all of you do, Dan Bongino hasn't been seen or heard from since that blow up he had with Pam Bondi when he was upset about whatever it is that they found, whatever it is that they've seen, and what it is that they're attempting to continue to cover up in those Epstein files. Because in case you guys also forgot, he was one of the podcasters who always talked about, before he was in the middle of this administration, about how we need to get to the bottom of these Epstein files. And now that they've gotten to the bottom of those Epstein files, they're trying to cover it up and put them back on the bottom because they're protecting someone in the White House whose name is all over those files. So since he hasn't been seen or heard from, he must have had this one moment where he went, damn, we can't do this. Oh my God, this is horrible. Donnie, it was you. And they've been trying to shut his ass up ever since. They spoke more about why this guy hasn't been fired yet, though. And it makes a lot of sense.
And so the open question that I've been hearing is Dan Bongino going to stay long term? I've heard some people suggest that this isn't an arrangement he's going to be interested in. Of course, he was a successful podcaster before joining the FBI. So will he return to that? Will he stay at the FBI? Nobody really knows as of now, but this is certainly an arrangement that seems to be unique.
Is there any surprise that Dan Bongino just hasn't been dismissed? Why he's still there, given the fighting with the attorney general? Or perhaps is there concern that if you let Dan Bongino go and get back into the podcasting world, that he's a liability?
Well, I think the big thing with this administration, and we've seen it, is there's a real reluctance to get rid of people, right? This administration is much more aligned internally, even with those internal fights, than Trump 1.0. I've talked to a number of administration officials and people who worked in the first Trump administration who have said, you know, we don't want to repeat the mistakes of the first administration, which was sort of a revolving door at times and caused a lot of external unnecessary drama as they look back on it. And this time around, Donald Trump, by and large, really believes in his team. And so I think that he doesn't feel like it is necessary because he has a team who are really loyal to the president and his agenda. And you've seen that. And with Dan Bongino, it's really interesting because he really created this following for himself well before Donald Trump tapped him to be FBI director. So there is a chance if he decides to leave that he can go back to that and still have that following. I don't think that that following will leave him because he leaves.
I think that correspondent's missing some serious details here as why this guy won't go yet and why they won't fire him. Yeah, you got a loyalist. Yeah, sure, he likes to keep his team together, but he still let go of the guy that was a part of the whole signal gate eventually, because there was enough heat on it and he could easily leave and it was kind of over. Swept him under the rug, put him in some lower level position to make sure nobody can hear from him again. Dan Bongino, as she did mention, has a podcast audience that he had before where a big part of what he talked about was the stuff that he's now very silent about. Do you remember how big Kash Patel and Dan Bongino's eyes got when they were in that interview talking about how Jeffrey Epstein, in fact, did kill himself? He was like, I swear, I saw it. I saw it. Dan Bongino never talked that little amount ever in his life. There's only so much he wanted to say and could say. And I don't know, maybe he's watching his back. I mean, as you know, people have died around this. Definitely one of the biggest victims of it that was talking about it, and 100% the culprit behind it. But for some reason, Ghislaine Maxwell is in a minimum security prison camp now, having yoga classes because she's willing to say whatever Donald Trump wants her to say so she can get a little bit of a reprieve from her sentence. But for some reason, there's no lists. There's another aspect of this. You know, there was this whole TikTok thing that they've started. The White House started a TikTok account. And this is more of the writing on the walls, the way people are responding to what it is that's happening with this cover up. Because everywhere they look, they had a lock on the bros online. They had a lock on the social media. And then those square Democrats had no idea how to respond. But again, as everyone's seeing how this is really going down, there's this guy named Billy McLaughlin, and he just he quit as the meme director of the White House since they jumped on TikTok because people won't stop talking about this. Here's some of the details, you guys. As I said, his name is Billy McLaughlin. He joined the White House as director of digital content. It was his official title. And that was following Trump's inauguration in January. He announced his departure from the role in an op-ed for Fox News. I'm not going to read you that whole op-ed because it was long and it was very glowing about all the great work that they did because they captured the hearts and minds of the people online. And I think there was a certain segment of that where they did. The only problem is now is the hearts and minds are noticing how much he's destroying the country and it's no longer there anymore. So while it's unclear when exactly he left the role, his LinkedIn lists him as being in the role until July. Many were quick to point out that the White House had just tried to launch this new TikTok account on the previous day before he got the hell out of there, only to receive a substantial amount of criticism and trolling from their users in response to them doing that. And apparently he just couldn't take the heat. So as I was talking about in that op-ed on Fox News, what it is he was saying was how great everything was. Again, more from Daily Beast. In this article for Fox News, he wrote that serving as director of digital content for Trump was the most meaningful and intense chapter of his entire professional life. Let me show you guys some of the intensity that he had to deal with after one day, after TikTok, after the White House joined their TikTok. Here's some of the direct and immediate responses that he got over on TikTok as they tried to capture the hearts and minds again of all these people. As you can see, there's some drag versions of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein at the top left. There's another one where someone pointed out another distraction for the Epsteinth time. Oh, there was that couple that was caught at that Coldplay concert, except they've been morphed into Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein being caught. Oh, there's Ivanka Trump with the red hat. My dad's on the list. There's a couple others. Trump is about to learn very quickly that TikTok hates him, someone pointed out. Vladimir Putin, who he's kowtowing to, is pointing out, again in this meme, he's on the list. So as this meme content guy is really on fire, I think all the meme folks online are figuring out what it is they really want to tell him. And once he saw it, he didn't want to do it no more. Here's the last one at the bottom right. Someone wrote, will they publish Jeffrey Epstein's files on this account? It's the first time we've had a convicted criminal of 34 crimes in the White House, by the way. And apparently he couldn't take the heat, even though he had captured the hearts and minds of everyone online. It kind of sucks when you've discovered that the destruction that you've unleashed on the country has even reached people who they thought were brainless and weren't paying attention and just want to see some funny memes from the White House of Donald Trump doing his stupid ass YMCA dance. That's what he thought it would be, because it worked for him for a few months. That is until everyone discovered who these guys really are. Dan Bongino, watch your back, because I feel like they're threatening you. Blink twice if you're okay. I mean, he can't though, because he's been hidden. Anyways, that's it. Thank you guys. See you later. Go check out Damage Report next. Make sure you flood those airwaves. Let them know what we've been doing over here, partying like crazy, drinking some Nas energy drinks, getting all crazy. But we do have tomorrow coming up, so make sure you guys prepare your drinks then, because we're going right into the weekend. I'm not sure what I'll drink then. Usually it's supposed to be one of these, since I'm being irresponsible only on Fridays. But still, glad you guys were here. Spread the word. Go ahead, you guys. Like what we're doing. We do it every day at noon Eastern. Tell your people about it. Like, share, also subscribe if you haven't done that yet. And also, all the stories that we do, I put these and cut them up back together and throw them back on the site again. If you missed any of it, it'll be there nicely packaged for you to see. Like, subscribe, and share those as well too. It's a fun time here as we got going on. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy yourselves. And I'll see you later, Ma.